Elijah and Clara had been eagerly preparing for their wedding day, filled with excitement and love. However, when Elijah's mother discovered that Clara was of a different race, everything suddenly changed. She told her son, "You can't marry her. I won't attend the wedding." These words not only broke Elijah's heart, but also challenged their relationship in ways they hadn't anticipated. Elijah, a reserved man, often found solace in a small cafe called Serenity Brews every afternoon after work. The cafe, with its sweet aroma of freshly brewed coffee and peaceful ambience, was his place of comfort during this tumultuous time. One cool afternoon, as Elijah sat in his usual corner, he noticed a woman entering the cafe. Her name was Clara, and with her warm caramel complexion and gentle smile, she immediately caught his attention. She wore a light floral dress, her curly brown hair cascading over her shoulders, and her eyes held a world of depth and warmth. Clara walked past the crowded tables, her gaze finally landing on Elijah, the man sitting alone with an old book. She hesitated for a moment before approaching his table and softly asked, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Surprised but pleased, Elijah smiled and replied, "No, please have a seat." As Clara sat down, Elijah felt there was something very special about this woman. They began a conversation, starting with simple topics like the weather, but soon delving into deeper subjects about life. Elijah realized that Clara was not only beautiful on the outside, but also had a deep and sensitive soul. She shared her passion for teaching, describing her work as an elementary school teacher, dedicated to bringing joy and knowledge to her students. Elijah listened with genuine interest, feeling a strong connection with her from that moment. Clara quickly noticed that Elijah was different from other men she had met. He had a calm and considerate demeanor, something she greatly appreciated. Their conversation was more than just exchanging information. It was a sharing of values, life perspectives, and dreams. Time flew by as they talked. What felt like only a few minutes to Elijah had actually been over an hour. Clara's soft and warm voice made Elijah forget all the worries and stress in his life. She spoke about the children in her classroom and the small joys her work brought her every day. Elijah also shared his work as a software engineer who had recently moved to this town, seeking a more peaceful life after years of living in the hustle and bustle of a big city. They quickly realized they had much in common. Both loved books, and soon they were discussing authors and works they both admired. Elijah couldn't remember the last time he felt this comfortable and happy. His life had changed since meeting Clara, and he couldn't stop thinking about how they would continue to get to know each other and grow closer. That day, as the sun began to set behind the buildings, Elijah realized he didn't want his time with Clara to end. They had talked about so many things, from trivial stories to grand dreams in life. Elijah felt like he had found someone with whom he could share everything, someone he truly wanted to know more about. Watching Clara smile, Elijah felt his heart leap. He knew he was starting to have special feelings for her, but he also understood that everything needed to progress slowly and naturally. When Clara said it was time for her to leave, Elijah felt a slight disappointment. But instead of letting that feeling overwhelm him, he decided not to miss the opportunity. As Clara stood up to leave, Elijah felt a rush of heat down his spine. He knew this was a decisive moment. "Clara," he called her name, his voice slightly trembling. She turned to look at him, her eyes bright under the cafe's lights. "Tomorrow, would you like to meet again? Maybe we can continue this conversation here or somewhere else." Clara was silent for a moment, but then smiled gently. "I would love to," she replied. Elijah felt as if a burden had just been lifted. He knew this was only the beginning, but it was the beginning of something he believed could become special. They agreed to meet again the next day, and as Clara left the cafe, Elijah couldn't stop smiling. He knew that a new chapter in his life had just opened, a chapter full of promise and hope. After that first conversation, Elijah and Clara began to meet more often. They explored the small town where Elijah had recently moved, through walks in the park, visits to museums, and evenings spent at their favorite cafe. Elijah realized that this small town had become much more vibrant thanks to Clara. She not only brought him new feelings, but also made his life more interesting. Every time they were together, Elijah always felt like time passed too quickly, and those moments always left him with unforgettable memories. Clara, on her part, also noticed that Elijah was a special person. He not only listened to her, but also shared things he had never revealed to anyone. Clara felt comfortable around Elijah, as if she could be herself without having to hide anything. She began looking forward to their next meetings, and every evening before going to bed, she often thought about Elijah with a light smile on her lips. One breezy afternoon, as Elijah and Clara sat together on a bench in the park, watching the leaves fall around them, Elijah decided it was time to open his heart. He turned to Clara, his deep brown eyes locking onto her hazel ones. "Clara," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "you've changed my life. Since the day I met you, I felt like I've come alive again, finding joy and happiness I never knew before. I think I've fallen in love with you." Clara looked at Elijah, sensing the sincerity in every word he spoke. She felt her heart race, not out of fear but out of happiness. She took his hand, a gentle yet meaningful smile spreading across her face. "Elijah, I feel the same way. I've fallen in love with you without even realizing it. You make me feel safe and loved." They shared their first kiss, a sweet and tender moment filled with emotion. From that point on, Elijah and Clara's relationship grew stronger than ever. They spent more time together, not just for fun, but also to share their dreams and the fears they kept hidden inside. Elijah opened up to Clara about the struggles he faced moving to this town and the loneliness he felt before meeting her. In return, Clara shared her hopes, dreams for the future, and worries about work and life. As days passed, the love between Elijah and Clara deepened. They realized that although the world might be full of challenges and hardships, as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything together. They began to dream of a future where they could build a happy and fulfilling life together. One evening, when Clara visited Elijah's apartment, she happened to see a photo on the bookshelf. It was a picture of Elijah and his mother, both smiling brightly on a beach, looking very happy. The photo piqued Clara's curiosity, and she asked Elijah about his relationship with his mother. Elijah slowly put down his book, his gaze thoughtful as he answered. "That's my mother," he began, his voice suddenly becoming serious. "She raised me on her own after my father passed away. We were very close, but there's something I haven't told you." Clara looked at him, sensing the difficulty in Elijah's words. "My mother has some very conservative views," Elijah continued, his eyes still fixed on the photo. "She's always believed that marriage should only be between people of the same race. I know this will be a big challenge when I decide to tell her about our relationship." Clara listened in silence, her heart aching at the thought of what Elijah would have to face. "I know this isn't easy for you," she said softly, trying to keep calm. "But I love you, and our love doesn't depend on skin color or other people's opinions." Elijah felt a weight lift from his heart at Clara's words. "I love you too, Clara," he said, his voice deep and sincere. "I'll talk to my mother about this. I won't let anything or anyone come between our love." Elijah's decision brought even more strength to their relationship. Both understood that they would have to face many challenges, but their love was strong enough to overcome everything. Elijah knew that this wouldn't be easy, but he was also fully aware that this was something he had to do to protect their happiness. As days went by, Clara became an integral part of Elijah's life. They were not just lovers, but also trusted companions, always supporting and encouraging each other in every aspect of life. Whenever Elijah felt stressed or worried, Clara was always there to listen and share. In addition, Clara introduced Elijah to her friends. They were a diverse group of people with different backgrounds and cultures, but they all shared common values of love, respect, and kindness. Clara's friends welcomed Elijah warmly, making him feel like he belonged to a new family. They often gathered on weekends, cooking together and sharing life stories. Each time, Elijah felt lucky to have Clara and these new friends in his life. One day, Elijah's best friend, David, asked him a question he never thought he'd have to face. "Have you thought about proposing to Clara?" At that moment, Elijah smiled and intentionally dodged the question. But when he returned home, he couldn't stop thinking about it. His feelings for Clara had grown day by day, becoming deeper and more solid than ever before. He knew one thing for certain. He wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. But deep down, he was still worried about the conversation he had yet to have with his mother. He knew he had to tell her, but he also feared that his mother would oppose their relationship. Elijah decided it was time to face this problem head-on. One Sunday morning, he called his mother and invited her over for lunch. His mother was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair and deep blue eyes filled with wisdom. She had raised Elijah alone after his father passed away when he was still a child. She was a loving and caring mother, but she also had very strict beliefs and sometimes rigid views on the world. That day, as they sat down for lunch, Elijah felt his heart pounding in his chest. He had rehearsed what he was going to say, but his voice still trembled slightly when he began. "Mom, there's something I want to tell you." His mother looked at him, her eyes filled with concern. "What is it?" "Elijah, you look worried." Elijah took a deep breath and began to speak. He told his mother about Clara, about how they had met, and how much he loved her. He also shared that Clara was of a different race, and that he knew this might be difficult for his mother to accept. His mother listened in silence, her eyes not revealing what she was thinking. When Elijah finished speaking, there was a long silence in the room. Then, his mother slowly put down her fork and looked straight into Elijah's eyes. "Elijah," she began, her voice calm but firm, "I have always believed that people should stick to their own kind. It's not just about skin color. It's about culture and background. I don't think this is a good idea." Elijah felt his heart sink. He knew this would be hard, but hearing his mother's words still hurt deeply. He took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Mom, I know this is hard for you to understand, but I love Clara. She's kind, intelligent, and she makes me happy in a way I've never felt before. I want to be with her, and I hope you can accept that." His mother looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and confusion. "But Elijah," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "what about your future children? How will they feel growing up between two different worlds?" Elijah felt tears welling up in his eyes. He knew this was a difficult conversation, but he also knew that this was his choice, and he had to stand firm. "Mom, love isn't about skin color or background. It's about the connection between two people, about understanding and supporting each other. Clara and I love each other, and that's all that matters." His mother looked at him, her eyes still filled with concern, but she also saw the determination in her son's eyes. She knew he had made up his mind, and no matter what she said, it wouldn't change anything. "I just want you to be happy, Elijah," she finally said, her voice filled with resignation. "If Clara makes you happy, then I'll try to accept it, but it will take time." Elijah felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew his mother still had her reservations, but this was a start. He reached out and took her hand. "Thank you, Mom," he said softly. "That's all I ask for. I love you, and I want you to be a part of my life, no matter what." His mother squeezed his hand, and for the first time, she felt a glimmer of understanding. It wouldn't be easy, but for her son's happiness, she was willing to try. That evening, as Elijah called Clara to tell her about the conversation with his mother, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He knew there were still many challenges ahead, but he also knew that with Clara by his side, he could face anything. As weeks passed, Clara and Elijah continued to grow closer. They faced challenges together, shared joys and sorrows, and built a strong and enduring bond. Elijah's mother, although still struggling with her own beliefs, began to see how happy Clara made her son. She started to spend more time with them, getting to know Clara better, and slowly, her heart began to soften. Clara, with her warm and caring nature, won over Elijah's mother, not with words but with her actions and the love she showed for Elijah. She treated his mother with respect and kindness, always patient and understanding, even when faced with difficult situations. Elijah's mother began to see that Clara was not just a wonderful person, but also a loving and supportive partner for her son. One day, as they sat together in the living room, watching a movie, Elijah's mother turned to Clara and said, "I can see now why Elijah loves you so much. You've brought so much happiness into his life. I'm still trying to understand, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for that." Clara, surprised and touched by the words, felt tears well up in her eyes. She reached out and gently squeezed the older woman's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. From that moment on, things began to change. The three of them started to spend more time together, building a new relationship based on love and understanding. Elijah and Clara continued to dream of their future, knowing that no matter what challenges they faced, they would overcome them together. They knew that love wasn't always easy, but it was worth fighting for. And with each passing day, they felt more grateful for the love they had found in the life they were building together.